October 29th, 2022. I want to focus on tonight on election rundown. See how we are a little over a week and a half away from the midterm election. Of course, right now, a lot of people are already voting and early voting, depending on the state. Some states don't have it. Many do. Okay, but before I want to mention a couple things, of course, we noticed that the husband of Nancy Pelosi, Paul Pelosi, was attacked during a burglary in his house. And the irony of this thing is that the person that did it was an illegal immigrant who was also a convicted felon who wasn't deported, being in a sanctuary city. So it looks like that their own policies kind of come back to bite him there. It does look like he will, although he did suffer some serious injuries, they're requiring surgery on his head, a skull fracture. Apparently, so far it looks like he's going to recover okay. So we hope that's the case. But at any rate, I just thought I'd mention it's kind of irony that their own policies kind of come back to bite them. And so anyhow, I want to kind of get on into the election. By the way, if you like these videos, please give me a like on the algorithm. It helps out there. And you can, if you haven't subscribed, you can, of course. And if you're subscribed, you can click the bell for notifications. Yeah, but let's get into the election here. I think things are looking better than even last week. The trends seem to be going in our direction. Starting off the generic ballot, I think technically we're at 2.9% in the Real Clear Politics generic ballot. However, there's a couple of polls in there I think are completely bogus. So they have the Democrats ahead by 4 and 5 points respectively. If you take those out and redo the average, I think we're something like 3.6%, something in that range. And if you take out those polls and then take out the two best polls for Republicans at the same time, you'll end up with an average of 3.2%, which is probably, so around 3%. Let's don't quibble, which is very good. And the expectations are somewhere that the Republicans should get somewhere around 20 additional seats or potentially more if things really break our way further. I think I've seen some estimates can go as high as 40, but I think that's probably in the wishful thinking world. But in any scenario, it looks like we'll take the House, and that's the minimum we need to do. And so that kind of gives you the idea on that. On the Senate side, looking at the situation right now, it's looking like there's a lot of races that are kind of, pretty competitive. But it's looking like the race with Fetterman and Oz turned out pretty much favorable to Oz. And his latest poll shows him moving ahead. There's the Real Clear Politics makes a projection where they take the average of the polls and then they look at the historic trends of how much the GOP tends to be underestimated. In fact, only I think Wisconsin was the only one where it went the other way. But at any rate, it looks like that they're projecting that that'll be a hold for the GOP and Oz will win the race. I don't know. It's hard to know. There's a lot of skullduggery could happen in that state, so have to watch out. They believe that even though Duboc, or how I pronounce his name, in New Hampshire is coming along strong, that they think the Democrats will still manage to hold out. Although I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised he might not pull it out. I know that the National Republican Senate Committee is going to commit some more money to it. And I've heard that finally Trump is unleashing some of his funds to help some of the people that he got nominated, which I think's about high time he does that. If he wants to go against the establishment, he needs to also throw his money there, I think. So anyway, we'll see on that one. But Real Clear Politics projects that the Democrats hold that one. They see Nevada as a Republican pickup. I mean, Laxalt's been doing pretty good, so we think that he'll probably he may very well win that one. Although that one you have to watch out for because we've got stung in Nevada before where the polling looked favorable, but there's some strong unions in the Las Vegas, so but they're projecting that as a pickup. Kelly versus Masters. It'd be really nice if Masters would win. Kelly strikes me, although I respect his service as an astronaut, as a politician, I think he's a blank slate. I mean, I don't think much of him as a politician. I think he's just sort of a kind of probably a prop for his wife, Gaffy Givers, or something, really. But anyhow, but the Real Clear Politics thinks that Masters will pull it out. Lake it seems to be doing very strong in the governor's race there, so that may help him pull it out in the end. So we got that one to consider. And the Herschel Walker race in Georgia, the thing that's going on there is, of course, you have a libertarian candidate. So the odds are that neither candidate will actually get above 50%, and that will put them into a runoff according to state rules. And I think that the runoff would favor the Republican Herschel Walker if the Republicans have already got 51 seats in the Senate by the time that occurs. Because in that case, I think that the level of Democrat effort will be lower and the enthusiasm will be lower. Where he could face a more stronger, and he probably will win anyhow, I think. And so I tend to think that might ultimately end up being a pickup too. So in North Carolina, I think they're projecting that Bud will win. I think that he's pretty strong in the polls, so that GOP hold there. Florida, I think that will probably. Rubio was doing pretty strong, so it looks like he should get that one fairly easily, particularly considering how good DeSantis is doing. Wisconsin, again, it's looking pretty. Let's see here. I think. Wisconsin. I think it looks like that Johnson will be able to get reelected, and of course, in Washington, well, that one, I think that's the Smiley race. She's a strong candidate, but it's such a Democrat state that they're not projecting. She might. It's a long shot for her to pull it out. Let's put it that way. And of course, Ohio. Well, it's amazing that's been close. I've talked about it before. I still think Vance is going to win it. It's kind of weird that Ryan has done as good as he has in a state like that, but I think given how strong the governor's race is going to Republicans, I still think that'll put Vance over the top. So that's kind of my rundown of the Senate races and kind of, what we think will probably happen, which would probably give us something like ultimately maybe as high as 53 Senate seats. And so obviously if we fall short of that by 2, we still would have control of the Senate. So given that some of these things are close races and anything can happen, and there is the New Hampshire race could go our way, I think. And so that puts a maximum of probably 54. So anyway, that kind of is what we're thinking about right now. So there's room to spare. So it's looking fairly good that at some margin, at least by 1 seat, we should be able to take the Senate. Because even if 2 or 3 of these projections go wrong, we should still be in the zone to get 51-49. And even at 50-50 with our 2 Democrats that are willing to maintain the filibuster, and if we have the House, I don't think they're going to eliminate the filibuster if we take the House by a good majority, and particularly if we take some of these governorships by surprise. Then I would tend to think at that point you would have them not wanting to do that, because the last thing they want would be if the Republicans got the presidency in 2024 and the Senate. Now, if they've eliminated the filibuster, now it goes against all sorts of things that they might not want to see could get passed. I think that the arrogance that they presented in the last session is just unbelievable, and the lack of judgment to attempt something like what they were trying to do. Threatening to pack the Supreme Court and pass all these radical laws that they were threatening to pass if they could get those last 2 Democrats to go along. I mean, it's very bad, statesmanship to say the least. But at any rate, so that's kind of my rundown here for the for the Senate, we're and the House, I think we're in pretty good shape on that. And we have a chance to win some interesting governor's races too. The Michigan one is kind of interesting. It's very close, but of course it's always challenging there. But it might happen if things really continue to break our way. Then these more optimistic things would probably come true. If not, then it might be a little bit muted from what we're saying. So that's kind of where we're looking at now. But I think after all the crazy stuff that the Democrats have done in the last 2 years and all the things that have happened, hopefully people will sane up and get out and vote the right way. And that's the key thing, is to get out and vote. I mean, if you have early voting, you can go ahead and vote early, or if you feel better about voting on the election day, that's great too. And so anyhow, well, that's kind of the way I see the election shaping up at the moment. And we'll just have to keep in touch. Of course, I'll have a chance to probably do another update before the election, and we'll kind of see if anything shifts in any direction by that time. So anyhow, I'll be posting this also in addition to here on YouTube. I'll be posting it on Rumble. And by the way, another thing I want to mention, of course, great news. Finally, I mentioned that Elon Musk has actually officially taken control of Twitter, which over a short period of time should make that a better site. I mean, it'll probably take a little while for him to actually get the thing fully under control, purge the right people, and get the right people in place. And there's a good question, what's he going to do about all the people who have been kicked off? Trump, I think, has expressed that he doesn't particularly want to go in there because he has his own system now, and he may want to stay there. Although I'm sure that somebody will echo what he's saying on Twitter, even if he doesn't go himself. And at any rate, my recommendation on that would be, why not just let everybody that's been suspended come back, and at the same time state a new whatever his rules are, or his free speech. But I assume there are some things that will still be prohibited. If somebody goes into a completely insane diatribe or something that's absolutely horrible or threatening or whatever. I mean, there'll probably be some rules, but I presume it won't be that. It'll be if your ideology don't agree with their ideology that you get kicked off for that. That's the key thing, is to allow any kind of civilized speech that would be occurring maybe on the congressional floor. Anything like that should be allowed for sure. So, in other words, if somebody goes into a racist diatribe or something, or a terroristic threat or something like that, that's a whole different issue. But the point is that if he lets everybody come back and then he states what the new rules are, then everybody has a second chance to behave themselves, and hopefully it turns into what he wants, as a free speech forum. Well, also so I do post various updates of my opinions on Twitter and some of the other social medias that I have the addresses of in the description below. And we'll wrap this up for now and hope for the best in the upcoming election.